Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes. So you've finished studying the Nectar of Instruction, and this is a very, very beautiful book, a very, very important book. The Nectar, I'm not going to do this in the form of an exam because I think that's coming up later, right?
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly, okay. Possibly, he says with a tone of surety in his mouth. But as we know, it was written by Rupa Goswami. And Rupa Goswami was a very, very illustrious personality. In fact, all of you are aware that we are known as Rupanugas. Anuga means to follow. Anu means to follow. And Rupanuga means those who follow the teachings of Rupa Goswami. And of all Rupa Goswami's works, probably two books are the ones which really teach us about how to progress on the path of devotion. One of them is the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada translated as the Nectar of Devotion. And the other important book is the Upadeshamrita, which Srila Prabhupada translated as the Nectar of Instruction. So this is the real nectar. I was just reading about today the bees in Vrindavan. I was reading about the deers in Vrindavan, the cows in Vrindavan, and I was reading about the bees in Vrindavan, and it was being explained that when a bee, what a bee has to do is it has to go to 500 flowers, and when it visits 500 flowers, then it gets enough to make a drop of nectar. And when the bee collects 1,000 drops of nectar, then it can make 1 teaspoon of honey. So in order to make 1 teaspoon of honey, the bee has to visit 500 flowers and then get 1,000 drops like that from 500 flowers. So next time you have honey, appreciate the work that went in. But the great saints are like this. They study so many books, many thousands of verses and pages of philosophy. And then what the great saints do is, like a honeybee that's visited every single scripture and every single verse and every single nook and corner of this amazing theology, what they then do is they bring it all together and almost just give you like a teaspoon. Therefore, in a very beautiful verse, it said, Nana Shastra Vicharane Kunipuno Sadharma Sanstapako. That what the Goswamis did is they studied everything, and then I guess the modern version of that would be the idiot's guide. Right? Like when you want to condense it into the most essential. So the Upadeshamrita is like that. It's the essence. Amrita means nectar. So like the bee has collected the nectar and giving it. And it's such a short book. It's only 11 verses. But it took you guys like... But that's good. That's good. Because it's very concentrated. So... yeah, and in these 11 verses, Rupa Goswami really teaches us amazing things. If you miss some of the sessions, if somehow you are inattentive in some of the sessions, then the easiest way to remember the Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, is through the acronym SPIRIT. Okay, like if you remember this word spirit, you can remember the entire journey of the nectar of instruction. And it's an amazing journey, because what Rupa Goswami does is he takes you from the very first step to the ultimate treasure. So S stands for sense control. Sense control and mind control, because you can't really get anywhere in life. What to speak of spiritually, even materially, you can't get anywhere in life unless and until we learn to control our senses and we learn to control our minds. And therefore, the very first verse of the Nectar of Instruction is all about sense control. Control your speech, control your anger, control your other urges of the body. And by learning control, you actually become free. This is a secret that most of the world doesn't know, that most of the world thinks satisfying everything that comes in my mind and satisfying everything that my senses desire, this is freedom. When I can create a life in which I can satisfy anything that my mind and senses may dictate, then I've really become free. But actually it's the exact opposite. When you've learned to control your mind and senses and not be imprisoned by those desires or those urges, and rather than identifying with the mind or identifying with the senses, we identify the mind, we identify the senses, knowing that those are just dictates, and I don't need to follow all of that. I'm a spiritual being beyond that, and I have to learn what's the most progressive path for me. That's the beginning of a beautiful life. So that's where Rupa Goswami begins the journey, and he says, S, sense control. Verse number 1, if you learn that, then everything will be opened up. All the doors open up for you. And then P stands for practices, because what Rupa Goswami does in verses 2 and 3 is he tells you the practices that are going to be favorable and the practices that are going to be unfavorable. In modern terminology, they say the 7 qualities of highly successful people. So Rupa Goswami gives the 6 qualities of highly successful people and the 6 qualities of those who will end up struggling in their life. And like that, Rupa Goswami begins to tell us all of the practices which are favorable and the practices which are unfavorable. Srila Prabhupada very, very famously writes in his books that advancement in Krishna consciousness is dependent upon attitude. Everything is your attitude and how you practice, in terms of you practice and train your approach to spirituality. And so these verses 2 and 3 are so important, because they talk about the practices which will support and the practices which will damage our bhakti. So it's amazing. You can see how already Rupa Goswami is kind of telling you what to abstain from, and then telling you on the journey what will support you. And then SPI. I stands for interactions. And in verses 4, 5, and 6, Rupa Goswami tells us it's not just about you. On this journey, if you want to go forward, it's not just about your controlling your mind, controlling your senses, and controlling your attitude, but you need to interact with others and also draw from them. If anyone thinks they can do Krishna consciousness alone, they're basically mad. And there's quite a few mad people out there. You may have seen. So we can't do it alone. We're weak. We have good days, we have bad days. We have days when we wake up and we think, just Krishna, nothing else. And other days when we think, Krishna, why do you have to wake up so early and I have to get up with you and do all these things? And so we go through thick and thin. We go through ups and downs. We go through enthusiasm and struggle. And in our journey of life, we go through so many twists and turns, so many difficult occurrences of the world. This morning we were at the funeral of Gopi Chandan, and we remembered her, and we remembered, how many twists and turns she went through, and we remembered and prayed for her family, for her husband, and for all those who remain after her, because it's tough. Life is tough, and so many unexpected things happen. And so Rupa Goswami says, interactions, make friendship with those who are on the spiritual path. And he teaches us how to make friendship, because nowadays people also don't know how to be friends. We don't actually know how to bond in deep ways. Sometimes we can be together with someone, and after years with them we realize, I don't even know this person. This person is completely different to who I thought they were, because it's so hard in this world to actually bond closely. So Rupa Goswami, it's amazing. This is a book of philosophy, it's a book of theology, but it also teaches you just how to have relationships, how to connect with people. So in the fourth verse, Rupa Goswami tells us the activities that we should engage with to bond more deeply. And then in 5 and 6 he tells us about the different levels and how everyone is on a different level, everyone's on a different journey. Sometimes in relationships we misjudge people because we expect them to be on a higher level than maybe they are, and then we feel let down. And so Rupa Goswami says you should know what level everyone is on, and don't expect more, and learn how to interact with different people in different ways. So this is beautiful, interactions. So SPI. And then Rupa Goswami says, if you learn to do all of these things, you learn to control your senses, you learn the practices that are favorable, you learn how to interact, and you make good relationships, then you have the opportunity to do something which very, very few people have learned to do in spiritual life, which is R stands for relish. So the 7th verse talks about how everything in Krishna consciousness is relishable. It's actually, it's sweet like sugar candy. That almost sounds like a song that you would sing at a nightclub somewhere. But he says it's sweet like sugar candy. But right now we don't know how to relish that. We chant and the bead bag feels like 60 kg heavy. The books, to open them is like weightlifting. It's like so difficult because we don't have that natural relish. And so things that should be very, very full of joy are not. But Rupa Goswami explains that by doing this SPI, interacting, practices, sense control, you can eventually learn to relish Krishna consciousness, and then the holy name, the books, become your shelter. Sometimes, we just need to disconnect from the world, but we don't know where to go. We want to disconnect from this world, so some people take intoxication because they want to go to a different space, but then you got to come back. Some people, when they don't want to disconnect from the world, they go on holiday, but then we have to come back. Some people want to disconnect from the world, we watch a movie, but then you have to come back. Some people, when they want to disconnect from the world, we go to sleep, but then you have to wake up. So what Rupa Goswami says is, if you learn to relish the holy name of Krishna, relish the books, then it gives you a whole nother world to live in. If you know the art, you can just put your hand in your bead bag. You can begin to chant Krishna's names. And if you've learned the art of how to relish, then you can enter into a whole nother world. If you've learned to relish the Bhagavatam, then when life gets a little rocky, then you can just open those pages and get lost into the spiritual world and almost feel a whole nother dimension of existence. But that requires one to become qualified in relishing. So Rupa Goswami says in the 7th verse, you can relish, but it takes time. And then he explains very, very beautifully. So we've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then in the 8th verse, he explains I, which is immersion. Because what he explains is that when you learn to relish the chanting of the holy name, the reading of Krishna's pastimes, then eventually, when it becomes even more concentrated, you don't just relish it, but you can immerse yourself in it. To relish it means there's a book, I read it, it's beautiful, it touches my heart, but then I come back to my world here. So we come to the books, we relish it, but then we're back to the world again and we deal with the world. But what he says in the 8th verse is something very, very beautiful. Tannama rupa charitadi sukirtana nushmrityo kramena rasana manisi niyojya tistan vraje tadanuragi jananugami kalam nayad akhilamithyupadesha saram. This is a very important verse because the whole book is known as Upadesha Amrita. Amrita means nectar, Upadesha means instruction. But in this verse, number 8, Rupa Goswami says, I'm telling you the Upadesha Sar. So the Sar means the essence. So these 11 verses are the nectar of all instructions, and 8 is the essence of the nectar. And in this verse he says that if you learn the art of how to immerse yourself in spiritual activities, then what will happen is you'll no longer be living in the material world. You'll no longer be living in Luton or Dunstable, or whatever it may be. But Distan Vrajay, you'll actually be living in Vrindavan. Now that's amazing. What Rupa Goswami says is that if you've developed your consciousness, you can be walking through this world, but living in another world. Because Vrindavan is not just a physical place or a geographical place. Vrindavan is a state of mind. And so we come to Vrindavan, but then we have to leave. I was reading today about the clouds of Vrindavan. And it said that the clouds of Vrindavan are foreigners. Because the clouds in Vrindavan they came from the ocean. And they came to Vrindavan. And when the clouds came to Vrindavan, then they became blessed by the touch of Vrindavan. And when the clouds of Vrindavan saw Krishna's pastimes, then they became so touched that they began to cry. And therefore they were raining on Vrindavan. But the clouds of Vrindavan at one point, they also could not stay there, because the winds blew them away from Vrindavan. And so like that is said, when we come to the Bhoma Vrindavan, we just came to Vrindavan. So we were like clouds. We were here, me, a product of Wembley. And somehow or other, this Wembley cloud made its way to Vrindavan. And we were touched. Maybe I didn't cry because my heart is still very hard, but I was touched by Vrindavan. But then eventually the winds came and I had to come back. But what Rupa Goswami says is immersion. When you become immersed, you don't need to come back. You stay there in that state of consciousness. So therefore Srila Prabhupada was always living in Vrindavan, even though he was traveling around the world. This is an amazing journey Rupa Goswami takes us on, but then he takes us to the ultimate. Because S stands for? S in spirit? Sense control. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I was about to have a heart attack. P stands for? The practices that support. I stands for? Interactions. R stands for? Relish. And when relish becomes more intense, then I stands for? immerse. So that's 8 and 8. Now in 9, 10 and 11, Rupa Goswami says, what I'm now taking you to is the culmination of it all. And the culmination of it all is described in 9, 10 and 11, and that's T, which is treasure. Rupa Goswami is ultimately taking us to the treasure, the most sacred, treasured place within the hearts and minds of the devotees of Krishna. He says, Vrindavan, Bharat is glorified, but within Bharat, Mathura Mandal, Vrindavan is glorified. But within Vrindavan, Govardhan is glorified. But within Govardhan, there is a place, a very, very sacred place, where Krishna and Srimati Radharani express their love for each other in a liquid form. And therefore 2 sacred ponds were manifested, which symbolize their intimate love for each other. And of those kunds, even more sacred than Krishna's kund, known as Shama Kund, is Srimati Radharani's lake, Radha Kund. And so he ultimately begins to describe Radha Kund. He describes Radha Kund to help us understand the mood of Srimati Radharani. Because Radharani, she has nothing in her heart save and except Krishna's pleasure. Radha, Ra means rag, and Dha comes from the Sanskrit word dhavati, which means to run. So Radha literally means she who is running after her object of attachment. That is Srimati Radharani. So Rupa Goswami takes us to Radha Kund, and he says, just see Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna. This is the highest expression of love. It's an expression of love that even Krishna is baffled by. You see, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, as you surrender unto me, with whatever desire you come to me, I will reward you accordingly. So in this verse, hidden within this verse, is the key of how to confuse Krishna. Because Krishna says, whatever you come to me and whatever desire you have, I will reward you accordingly. So now in this key, in this verse, is the key to understanding how to confuse Krishna. Because if someone comes to Krishna with no desire, then Krishna gets confused. Because Krishna is like, whatever desire you have, I'll reciprocate with that. But what about if you come to Krishna with no desire? What about if you come to Krishna with complete selflessness? What about if you come to Krishna and say, I didn't come for anything, but I've come to give you everything? Then Krishna gets confused. And in his confusion, Krishna doesn't know, what shall I do? How shall I reciprocate? How shall I show my gratitude? And then Krishna realizes, I have to do something, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what to give you. So what does Krishna give? Himself. He said, I have nothing else to give. I don't know what, you confused me. So now all I have is myself. Take me. And that's the love that Srimati Radharani comes to Krishna with. That Krishna says, Napadaye ham niravadya samyujam susadu krityam vibudayushapi. I don't know how to repay you. Because you came to me, you left everything behind, you put everything on the line, you risked, and you just run. And I don't know how to reciprocate with that. You've snookered me. All I can give is myself. This is the journey that Rupa Goswami takes us on. Isn't it a beautiful journey? This is the spirit. This is the heart of spiritual life. Vrindavan is the playground of God. We have a playground at the manor also. Who's qualified to enter a playground? Children. To this day, I haven't made it into the playground at the manor. Have you? Children are allowed to enter a playground. So if Vrindavan is the playground of God, then it means the only person who's going to get entrance is one who's become a child, one who's become so innocent, one who's become so pure, and one who holds no duplicity or malice towards anyone else in their heart, one who only wants to have pastimes of love. This is what kids do. They just want to play all day. That's what they do. There's no work. So Rupa Goswami says you've got to become a child again. When you grow up in spiritual life, you become a child again. That's how you know someone is mature. That they become like a child. And so Rupa Goswami, through this whole journey, verse number 1, S, sense control. Verses number 2 and 3, practices that support us. Verses number 4, 5 and 6, interactions with devotees. Verse number 7 leads us to relish. Verse number 8 helps us to become immersed. And then verses number 9, 10 and 11 take us to the treasure, which is Radha Kund and the service of Srimati Radharani. So you can just study this book again and again. Maybe you should just go through it again. And because actually everything is there. Because like a honeybee, Rupa Goswami has gone everywhere, and then he's concentrated everything and just given it to you in a teaspoon. And it's Srila Prabhupada, when the Nectar of Instruction was completed, he just said, print thousands of copies and distribute them. So it's so beautiful. We're so fortunate to have access to books like this, you know. Sometimes we may not understand what we're holding in our hand. You see? It's like a map. It's a map which is taking you to the treasure that we have been seeking for lifetimes. And we have the map in our hands, in our grasp. Now we have to walk that path. Hare Krishna. So this was 2 years of Nectar of Instruction in 20 minutes. So it's nice. It's a nice way to remember the whole journey of the Nectar of Instruction. So yeah. Does anyone have any questions on anything that I've said, or anything else you would like me to speak about today, or yeah, anything else you want to discuss? Because I didn't want to just speak the whole time. Yes.
Maharaj, you know, now that we're learning all these this nectar,
Drink
different
on
books that Prabhupada has given us.
Not a drink, on the thing, my drink is there.
And a lot of the, as I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of the devotees in our group are also very engaged as well, practically in services and things, and it's inspiring to see how they're really applying what they're learning. They're making it a living process, not just passively learning on an intellectual platform. What can you say to kind of help them to inculcate that mood and mission to take responsibility for this mission? Because we know that in Krishna consciousness it's not just your own personal growth, but Prabhupada is in one sense given us a mandate to actually take this and share this with others. What can we do to become like Prabhupada men and women for the future? Then it's very much needed now in the world.
Yeah. The battery's gone. You may have to just hold it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. It's your tapasya for the day. Well,
Like
I don't know.
yogis, right? You know,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
do
Or
the
there
yogis
could
where
be
they just
some
like
other.
that.
There
So
could be
that's-
others. You could maybe try and put it on this mridanga and find a more ingenious way to do it.
No, I'm just going to do this now.
Okay. See, yeah. Maybe by the end of it, you'll be like a Siddha Baba or something with mystic powers.
You wanna try this?
Okay, Karishma's got one. Okay, cool. She's going to bring it in a second. Yeah, taking responsibility. You know, the manna is a very, very special place. Because one thing I really appreciate about the manna is how the devotees really took responsibility. I don't want to embarrass Pranabandhu Prabhu, but I will. Shivram Maharaj said, we know about devotees of Krishna, but if we were to give a title to Pranabandhu Prabhu and Shuddhidhamma Prabhu, we'd say they are devotees of Bhaktivedanta Manna. I thought that was very, very beautiful, because like Pranabandhu Prabhu, Shuddhi Prabhu, they really took the manna as their responsibility. They live and breathe that every day. When they wake up, they think about what they're going to do for the manna. Pranabandhu Prabhu probably knows every inch of Bhaktivedanta manna like the back of his hand. All the drain pipes, all the everything. He knows everything. And that's beautiful, because someone took a part of Srila Prabhupada's movement and said, I'm going to take responsibility for this. At the manor we had Mother Kalangana, and she also took a part. Oh, we've got the same one. I don't know how to use it. Oh, you don't know how to use it? Okay. You can give it to me. I'll do it quickly. It'll be quicker for me. You can give it to me. Yeah. I will inaugurate you. You can just give me that. Yeah.
Tech masterclass as well.
Yeah.
We did in School of Bhakti sometimes.
We do everything. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Haribol!
Definitely. Unfortunately, this part is not in the nectar of instruction, but
But nectar devotion.
other parts, yeah, nectar of devotion. Yeah. Yukta Vairagya, that's true. Yeah. Mother Kalangana, she just took a part of Srila Prabhupada's movement. She said Krishna must get the best Mangalarti sweets. And so she just did that for 40 years, and she made it the best. I mean, her sweets were known all over the world. And she spent, 10 minutes painting, hand painting every single sweet. And, she would walk around the manor with her apron which said, Krishna's little helper. That was very nice. And she had no expectation for her service. When you come to the pujari, then you can ask for some Mangalarti sweets, and they cost £1. Token gratitude for Krishna. So she would come and ask for sweets, and then she would say, I'll come back and pay. I was like, it's okay, Mother Kalangana. I mean, you make them. You're the mastermind behind the whole thing. No, I must pay. I'm not special. No expectation, and she served. So she took a part of Prabhupada's movement, and she took responsibility for it. Yesterday night I was with Prayojan Prabhu. And Prayojan Prabhu took a part of Prabhupada's movement, cleaning Krishna's toilets. And you know, his system for cleaning Krishna's toilets was more complicated than the Mangalarti transfer in the Pujari department. I mean, it was meticulous. Like, he had it all written down. When you would have a mop, I don't know if you got trained by him,
Yeah.
but there was a mop and it was like half a cup of this, half a cup of this much water, this much temperature, this must be done first, then you can do that bit. And he was serious about it. It was serious business. Because these weren't just any toilets, they were Krishna's toilets, and they had to be done properly, the best. And if they weren't, you heard about it. That was amazing. He just took that service and he just said, it's my service and I do it the best I can. There was one devotee in Vrindavan, his name was Vibhu Chaitanya, and he used to cook all the offerings for Krishna Balaram, but then he became very sick. And in his old age, he couldn't do much service, but then he took up a service. He said, I'm going to serve the Charanamrit. And so he would sit there, serving the Charanamrit to each guest. And every serving was very deliberate, was full with devotion, was attentive, because this is my service for Krishna. So we're very, you know, in Krishna's eyes, nothing is big and nothing is small. No one's big. One time a devotee said, like, Prabhupada, but he's a big devotee. Prabhupada said, big devotee? Narad Muni is a big devotee. Even the biggest devotee here with all the titles, how big are we? Very small. And in another sense, no one's small for Krishna, because everyone's big. So no one's big, no one's small, everyone has the opportunity to serve. And what I would say to everyone in this room is, take a little bit of Krishna's movement and say, like, I take responsibility for this. And it could be anything, from cleaning the toilets to making the Mangalarti sweets to making sure the manna is beautiful, and you know, it could be anything, you know. And that's the great opportunity we have. And anyone who takes responsibility and takes ownership, you conquer Krishna. Because Krishna was like, you did this with so much love, you know, it's very nice. I was reading about the deers in Vrindavan, and it's amazing. The deers, they offer different services to Krishna. So like, one of the services they do is they sweep the dust before Krishna comes to clear the pathway. But because the deer, you know, the musk deer, has a very beautiful fragrance, so it's said that when the musk deer sweeps, then it also leaves a little bit of its fragrance. So when Radha and Krishna come, then not only is the dust very nice, but it's very fragrant as well. But then it said, you know what the main service of the deer is? You know what the thing that the deer does which pleases Krishna like in no other way? This was like a revelation to me, and it's connected to an English saying. That's very vague. I don't know if you'll make the connection. There's a term we say in English related to the deer, which now occurs to me, comes probably because of this service that the deer does in Vrindavan. Can you think of an English saying that relates to the deer?
I thought of one, but it may apply more to cows and deer.
Probably not it then.
I was thinking the
No,
grass.
like, you know, we use the term doe-eyed.
Oh, yes.
You've heard that? Like the person was doe-eyed. Like they were looking at something very intently.
So immersed, right?
Like an immersed, yeah.
Like a deer in the headlights?
Yeah, doe-eyed means like very like with like staring, but with gentle and like also like immersion.
Yeah, kind of lost in it almost in a nice
Yeah,
way.
right. So it was mentioning that the thing that the deer does in the spiritual world is the deers just lovingly glance at Krishna. And that's it. That's like the service. And I was thinking like, and Krishna becomes conquered by the way they just look at Krishna. And I thought that's so beautiful, because sometimes you do also experience that, like when someone looks at you with like, you can say like a lot of love and you can feel their love. It's almost like it moves you in a different way, their glance. So that was very nice. So yeah, you can like do anything for Krishna. It's so beautiful. And at the end of life, when all is said and done, that's what will count, you know. All the degrees, all the titles, all the other achievements we have, that will all like just go to the background, and what will remain is what you did to conquer Krishna's heart. And it's really just whatever you want to do. Someone may sing for Krishna, someone may make dresses for Krishna, whatever it may be. But take responsibility for something. Is
Thank
that,
you.
yeah,
No, amazing.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is this book you're reading? The bees, the clouds,
It's very nice.
the
Yeah.
deers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So basically what happens at the end of Brihat Bhagavatamrita is that in the final chapter of Brihat Bhagavatamrita, Sanatan Goswami writes something called Bhakti Rasayana. So you understand Rasayana? Rasayana means like elixir. So I don't know if anyone here has ever done an Ayurvedic detox. Okay, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but apparently in Ayurvedic detox, what they do is you get bathed in oils and all that stuff, and then all your toxins come out, and then they gather and then they come out. So almost when you do Ayurvedic therapy, what they say is that the first stage is getting all the toxins out, and once all the toxins are out, then you're actually rejuvenated, but in another sense you look really like a little, also maybe emaciated a little bit, because you've just undergone a major purification. And then what they say, then the step 2 is to give you the elixir, the rasayana. And what that does is it rejuvenates you in another way. So first you have to get the toxins out, and then you can get... So in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, it's said that often what we do in spiritual life is so much of our practice is getting rid of all the toxins. Like no material desires, material world is miserable, like so detachment, so we're just kind of purifying ourselves of all of our attachments and get rid of the material diseases. But then after we've done all of that, we need to become attracted to Krishna. Because like, if your whole life is just a philosophy where like there's no happiness in the material world, it's all temporary, we're here for some time and then we have to leave everything behind. If it's all just the harsh truths of detachment, then we're almost like just doing half the therapy. So there has to be rasayana, there has to be some elixir to then build you into a meaningful life. So the end of Brihat Bhagavatamrita, there are these beautiful verses which are known as Bhakti Rasayanam. And they're basically just talking about Vrindavan and helping us to actually fall in love with Vrindavan. And become immersed in remembrance of Krishna. because we're actually supposed to remember Krishna. It's funny, you know, it's like that everything, although in our movement we stress hearing and chanting, the ultimate thing is smaranam, because that's the ultimate injunction of Shastra. Shmartavya satatam vishnur vishmartavya najatu chit sarve vidhi nisheda shur etayoreva kinkara. The ultimate essence of everything is to always remember Krishna and never forget him. So that's it. So what I'm speaking about is from the
Brilliant.
Bhakti Rasayana.
After that, quite amazing. I'm going to change the question. I decided to. So I was going to talk about some other stuff. Let's go to my changing question. So, you know, one of the verses halfway through, or towards the end, actually, talks about, you know, this hierarchy, which you explained so beautifully about, you know, going from, well, Mathura, or I'm going from actually
Mathura,
the
Vrindavan,
Swamis,
yeah.
Mathura, then Vrindavan, then
Govardhan.
Govardhan, then Radha Kund and Sham Kund, Radha Kund. So, having just come back from Vrindavan, you know, I mentioned before, saw a little snippet on the video of you exchanging some loving exchanges in Vrindavan during Holi.
Oh yeah.
So can you give us some more examples of things that you experienced, things that you feel happy you can share with us?
Of Vrindavan?
Vrindavan.
Or
With this in mind.
You talking about this year?
Yeah.
Oh, Jaipur, isn't it?
Jaipur.
Oh, sorry, you didn't go to Vrindavan?
No, we were in Jaipur. We were in Vrindavan.
And
What
then
you saw was
Holi
in
was
Jaipur.
in
Yeah,
Jaipur,
but
okay.
yeah.
But just in
But
terms
Jaipur
of,
is also Vrindavan.
if there's anything you can give in relation to Vrindavan. Nice, Nishram, thanks.
Yeah, Vrindavan, what can we say? So many thoughts come to mind. In Vrindavan, spiritual life takes on a certain spontaneity. In Vrindavan, it's like everything seamlessly. It's so easy to remember Krishna. You know, in Vrindavan, the material world is very, very distant. The reason why for us, like practicing spiritual life is still, it's almost a struggle, is because we haven't seamlessly integrated Krishna into everything we're doing, you know. So this is why Vrindavan is so powerful, because it shows us how Krishna can just be there in every part of our life like that. So when I go to Vrindavan, yes, I hear, yes, I chant, yes, I pray, but what I often do is just observe. One of my main sadhanas in Vrindavan is to observe. Because what you learn about in pages of philosophy and thousands of hours of lectures, if you observe the bhav or the emotion of those who are actually living in Vrindavan, then just by seeing them, you can immediately understand so many things. Yeah. If you observe someone, just their daily activities, their daily devotion, if you observe how those who sing, not just singing from their mouth, but sing from their heart, if you observe when people take darshan, if you observe the focus of those who are doing parikrama, bowing down, if you observe how the old widow in a temple makes a ghee lamp for Krishna, in these observations, you begin to get insight into the heart of devotion. And so for me this is always very, very beautiful just to observe, because so many things, you know, when I used to be with my spiritual master, after some time I realized maybe I don't need to ask so many questions. Maybe if I can just observe him. So then later on I stopped asking so many questions. Of course I did also ask some, but mainly just watching. And so it was very beautiful this time to see the Brajabasis, and not just the Brajabasis, but even all of the devotees in our own group. Because like those clouds that come to Vrindavan and become touched by Vrindavan, you see how even the devotees and the pilgrims who come to Vrindavan, in that time you can almost even see how they get touched by that spirit of Braj. And you see how it, you know, it's like on the last day we were sharing reflections, and you know, like, yeah, there were a lot of tears, and a lot of tears from people you wouldn't normally expect to, like, even big boys can cry. So that was nice, you know, to see how Braj touched people. So yeah, I mean, there's so many things to say about Vrindavan, but nowadays that's what I do. I love to go on parikrama and now just interact with Vrindavan. Touch the dust, see how people are living their life, see how they express their devotion, observe how they interact with Krishna. It's a living theology. Scholars, they do something called a field study. So that when they want to learn something, it's amazing. There's this scholar called Alan Entwistle, and he's written like a 700-page thesis on Vrindavan. And I mean, it's quite profound, some of the things he comes. Some of it is also maybe a bit questionable, but it's amazing. They just immerse themselves, and they just live there, and they just observe. So it's very powerful, yeah.
Thanks, Maharaj. I almost feel
Can I just
transported
share
there.
something on that?
Yeah.
So when I was in Vrindavan, one Mataji took me to the Gurukul in a taxi and planted some trees, and then on the way back, coming back with her, I said, "Oh, you must come to London now, you know, and I'll show you the manor and take you so on." She goes, "You know, Prabhuji, I have no desire to live Vrindavan." When she said that, I just thought, wow, you know, what a desire to have, never to live Vrindavan. So that's just amazing. And I always think about that, is how devoted she is to Vrindavan. And there's nothing more outside Vrindavan. That is it. Amazing, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Nectar of Instruction is taking us there to that realm, and nice. I don't know how we're doing for time, because I know you do have some other activities.
8:23.
Yeah, I've gone
So-
over time.
I mean, we were going to have a quiz and charade. Do we want to have both, or should I go for charade?
Yeah, I don't know.
Vrindavan is a playground, so there has to be some play
Really
also.
bored.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll just do sure.
Okay,
Have
Srila
a
Rupa
good time.
Goswami ki,
Yeah.
Nectar of Instruction ki. Thank you so much.